Hello, everybody. It's Eric Dorward with the Spartan Rocketry Club here for part two of our Screamin Mimi build. Should be fun. Last time we finished building the motor mount. There's actually one little thing we're going to do now that the glue is essentially dry, and that is we're going to put fillets on it. Fillets we've done before on fins, but basically we're just going to put a little bit of glue around the joints. And the reason is we want the joints to be as strong as possible. So I'm going to put some glue that way. I'm going to put it on every exposed side that I can manage to get glue into. So that's three sides for this because I obviously can't put any up here. It's flush against, but I can put some in here. Of course, there's not a whole lot to see while I add this glue, but the last thing you do once you get the glue in place is you're going to take your finger and you're just going to kind of push it in there as you spin the glue around, and you're going to get a bead of glue on your finger, and that is exactly what you want because you want to spread the glue out evenly, and you also want it to be kind of curved in there, which your finger will accomplish pretty nicely. That looks pretty good. And of course, then we need to do the last bit here as well. The fillet provides extra strength because the only thing that's really holding this together is the glue in between the cardstock here and the cardboard. So having that extra bit of glue is going to strengthen it. We're also going to put glue fillets when we put this inside the body tube, which we'll do shortly, in here anyway, because that's the only one we'll be able to reach. My finger's a little gluey, going to get rid of that. Going to put this aside for the time being to let it dry. I'm actually going to put it like this too, because if I put it like this, the glue could kind of drip down on the underside. So I'm going to leave it horizontal, just not here. So that's fantastic. Next thing, so I'm going to take this moment to do a little bit of marking. Here's the main body tube. We're going to attach the fins to it. We need to know where. When we have done this previously, when we did plastic build, there were slots. It was really easy. There are some other builds where there are going to be holes that cut in down here where you put the fin right through. That's not the case here either. So we actually are going to need to mark where we're going to be gluing everything. And in order to do that, the instructions, I've cut out a piece. And you can see right here, there's a chunk missing. Here's the chunk. This is a fin marking guide. So I'm going to get some tape, attach it here, and then I'm going to glue this close to the end, not exactly at it, but close to the end. And I'm going to do my best to get it straight, because if it's not straight, the fins won't be straight. Anyway, so wrap it around, and the idea here is that the little arrows are going to line up. If you do this perfectly, when you taped it, they should line up perfectly. If they don't, you can kind of wiggle it a little bit. And I'm going to tape that snugly in place. Now, what are we doing with this? Well, I got a pencil. I'm going to mark each time there's a little arrow on the top and eventually on the bottom, but for the time being, I'm just going to mark all the tops, and then I'm going to move my hand, and I'm going to mark all the bottoms. And there are a lot of fin attachment points for this. In fact, there's even one here where the junction is. Turn it around, do the same thing. The point in having two marks is that when we go to mark the fin, we have 2 points to connect, so we should have a straighter, more accurate line. You also will notice that there's a lot of language on each of these. It tells you exactly what each one is and what you're supposed to be doing with it. So I'm not gonna write the whole thing. Obviously, shouldn't need to do that. But I've got lower fins and whistle fins, and they say LF and WF. I think L is probably good, and W. So I'm going to write which one's which. Here is kind of the most complicated part. I've got a lower fin, and in the middle, I've got where the launch lug goes. So I'm going to put 2 L's for that one. A whistle fin, a lower fin, a whistle fin, and that should do. Now, I can take the tape off and remove this, and we've actually done this step before. We take the tube and we go over to our nearby door jamb and we put it in there, and we use that to extend the fins. Obviously, I'm not taking you with me to do that, so I'm going to do that here shortly once I get my marker off. There, my marker's off, and you can see the marks. I'm going to connect the dots, and that will be our next step. There's no real sense in watching that, so we'll do that a little bit later. The other thing that we're going to do while I'm here is, here are the fins. I've sanded them, not perfectly, but again, we weren't looking for perfection. What we do need to do now is cut them out. They have been laser cut, but the laser doesn't go the whole way through, because otherwise the fin would just fall apart. So we need to give them a little help, and I'm going to take this in as closely as possible. There are spots like right here where you can see the wood hasn't been cut at all. This is what's holding it together. So I need to make sure that I cut that part out. It's actually kind of hard to see right now because there's a decent amount of sawdust that's in the groove. But those little burrs are the part that I most need to be focused on. This is fairly thick balsa too, so I may not be able to get through in just one cut. I like to do the ones that are going with the grain first, because they tend to be the easiest to cut out. So that would be these. This one's actually kind of tough. That's okay. Turn it around. Remember, the goal is not to do this in one strong cut, because any manner of bad things could happen from hurting yourself to breaking the wood. So if it takes me more than one try, that's fine. The other side, the other side's a lot cleaner, and you can see those burrs a whole lot better. So let's bring that in. Like right here and right here. Those are the things I need to make sure that I'm cutting. Again, I'm going to use the knife to make sure that I'm going through. You can hear them snap if you do it properly. And I'm only going to do the ones that are with the grain right now. The other ones I'll do off camera, because you don't need to watch me cut all these. So in any event, if it takes you a few slits through, that's fine. If you need to flip it to the other side to either see it better or to get just a second run at it, that's not a bad idea either. The goal is, of course, to make this as clean as possible and not to break the wood. This is pretty thick, but still, you could snap that if you were being a little careless. So at this point, I'm going to finish cutting these out. I'm going to make my marks on my tube, and then we're going to do a little bit of work. So I will be back in a moment, at least for you. Okay, I finished all that off-camera work, or at least most of it. First off, here's the body tube. The body tube, you can see, has lines on it now. I did not make it the whole way up to the nose. This is going to be my end. I only need to go 7 inches. That's the longest that I've looked through the instructions, so that's way more than 7 inches. Doesn't need to go the whole way. What I am going to do, though, is I need to make some measurement marks on this for 2 reasons. One is the lower fins, they attach right up at the end, so I don't need to worry about that too much. But the whistle fins, there's a separate set of 4 fins. They need to go 1.5 inches up their lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the ones that say W on them, like this one, and I'm going to make a mark 1.5 inches up. So there's a W, there's an L, here's another W. There should be 4 of these all told. So I should be making 4 marks, all at 1.5 inches. And again, we can definitely make sure that these are in the right place. They're all at 1.5 inches as we attach them, but we want to at least give ourselves a good start. The other thing we need to do is the launch lug needs to be offset, and it's supposed to be 7 inches from the end of the body. So I'm going to go find my LL line. It's right here. And then I'm going to put a mark at 7 inches. Now, the instructions don't tell you to do this ahead of time. They basically have you do it as you're attaching things, which personally, I don't like that at all. I find that to be quite irritating. It's easier to measure on a plain, body tube. Doesn't have anything going on with it. So that's taken care of. We can put this away for the time being. We will use it a little bit later. Because we want the glue to dry completely in the motor mount. The next thing we need to do is we need to deal with the fins. Now, I've cut one of them out completely. The other one is essentially done. I can run over this one more time and they should pop out. In fact, some of them already are, essentially. I ran over them a couple of times, but this one up here, oops, that one came out. That's nice. This one's just stuck in one extra place, so I'm going to run the knife through it a couple times. and just make sure that that last little bit is cut free. There we go. And this one is a little bit stuck up here still, so I'm going to run the blade right through this part. And if you hear that crackling, that probably means you're doing a good job. And that ought to cut it loose. Now, this fins we want to keep, obviously. This is scrap. However, it is nice to be able to have a couple of just wooden sticks from time to time. So I'm going to do myself a favor, and I'm going to cut, I'm just going to extend kind of this line a little bit. So I'm just going to cut, and it'll probably take a few tries to get through the wood. If you happen to find a grain and it goes right in the first time, then it'll be pretty easy. But essentially, I'm just going to cut that open until the dowel comes off, and I'm going to do the same thing here. So I'm just going to give myself a nice line, cut down it a few times, and eventually it'll probably just crack and my stick will come loose. I like having these. I usually cut myself a couple from the scrap wood from each set that I build, because these are great for applying glue, so you don't have to put it on your fingers, and you can get it farther down into, say, like the body tube when you're attaching things. So there we go. I actually cut through a decent amount of that. I will finish this off camera. I actually did one already from the other bit of scrap, so that's here. Anyway, that's good for the cutting. The fins, however, are not anywhere near done. As you can see, if you look at them carefully, there's the burr that was holding them in place. It's still there, and we don't want that. We don't want it at all. We also want to make sure that they're all exactly the same size. And it looks like a little bit got kind of nipped off here when I was cutting this out, so that's a bit of a problem. We're going to deal with both of those problems simultaneously, at least a little bit. Here's my sanding block. If you have just a big piece of sanding paper, this is probably better to do on that, but I got my block. That'll be fine. I'm going to line up all the pieces like so that they're all flush, at least in one direction. And then I'm just going to sand back and forth. Fantastic. It'll probably take you, this isn't quite done. You can see I got the burrs off two of them, but these two are not quite done. That just happens from the way you're holding the wood, so it's not perfect. Anyway, you're going to sand those off. There's 4 sides to sand on each one. Then for the fins, we don't really need to focus too much on that, but we do need to round them. The instructions ask us to round the leading edge. I'm actually going to round the tail edge too, because that's somewhat aerodynamic. So you need to know which one's which. The instructions tell you, but also the grain usually points toward the body tube. So this is the grain. The body tube's going to be like this. That makes this the lead edge and this the tail edge. So I'm going to round them. And there are a lot of ways you can do it. Probably the way I found best is using the sand block and just kind of rounding, going around the corner like this. Even those couple little stripes, let's see if you can see the edge that I've sanded, it's not square anymore. It's starting to round, and it's going to take a while. But we do want to round these for aerodynamic reasons. If we're just shooting up a square or rectangular face like this, that's really not aerodynamic. We want to get it as, we don't need to get it perfect. If we really cared, we'd airfoil it, which is a serious operation, but rounding it is almost as good and takes a whole lot less time. So that's going to happen off camera. No sense in watching me do that. I still need to attach the motor mount into the body tube. That can wait for another time too, because I don't have time in this video. That's fine. We're making decent progress though, and that's always exciting. The next video, we should be ready to attach the fins, I would think. So there's a bit of gluing to be done, always very exciting. I will see you in the next segment.